Hey everybody, welcome to another live stream here at Fast Trax Live. My name is Paul Abernathy, and thanks for joining me on your Wednesday. I know there's a lot of things you can be doing at this time, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with me. Shout out to all of our Fast Track students. This is all for you. Again, remember, if you have questions and you're in the Fast Track program, make sure you send your questions to me at least 24 hours in advance so we can be ready to be able to navigate where we need to go to answer any questions you might have in your program. I guess a lot of times I answer those questions in an email, so it might not necessarily need to be done on Wednesday night, but it is available to you, and it's always available to Fast Track students. If you also want to send something to me at paulabernathy.com, that portal, you can do that and send your questions as well. It'll be selected and either answered in a podcast or maybe even live on a Wednesday night show. So thanks for joining me. We've got a couple things we want to go over today, a couple new announcements to kind of state of the union, if you will, of what's going on here at Electrical Code Academy and all those type of things. And I did get a question that was submitted today that's asking me to kind of give a code reference synopsis for motors. In other words, how to, what code reference sizes conductors, feeders, feeder overcurrent protected device or short circuit ground fault protection, branch circuit short circuit ground fault protection, understanding the table for 430.250 and when you might get something on an exam and you got to be careful, and overloads. So somebody did submit a question for that, so I will be walking you through the code book for that. That'll be part of what we do as well. But before we get into that, tell you a little bit about me. My name is Paul Abernathy, if you're not familiar. I've been teaching the National Electrical Code for over 33 years now. I am the founder and CEO of Electrical Code Academy, and we have over 5,000 students that are in our Fast Tracks programs, whether it's the residential, commercial, grounding, and bonding. But the most popular by far is our, is that right? Hold a drink up. Can you all imagine what I had today for dinner? Is most popular is obviously our Fast Tracks Black and Plus program for exam preparation. Although I will tell you, it's not just for exam prep. You know, there's a lot of people that are in it just to learn the code better. So shout out to Michael. Actually, let's go to the chat so everybody can give some shout outs here. Let's see here. We got shout out to Dustin D. Rogo, whatever. Michael Schwartzy's in the house as always, and it looks like my chat feature is not running. Go figure that, right? So let's see if I can figure out how to make that chat feature work again, because it's not working. Bear with me. I will try to figure out why it's not working so that y'all can see the chats on the screen. Bear with me. I will, let's see if I can find out what's going on. You know, it never fails, right? Never fails that something is not working. Usually never fails. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So we'll give that a shot there, and we'll keep that up just in case. We'll minimize that now. All right. So I don't know if that's working or not, but at any rate, I can see you. Eric, thanks for joining me. Russ, thanks for joining me. Schwartzy, Michael, again, all of y'all that are in the chat, I appreciate you coming in and joining me tonight. It would go out saying that I would not have a session where something didn't work, right? So obviously the chat bot or whatever the heck it is not working. Okay, so any rate. All right. So without that, let's go on and get into tonight. So the first thing I want to do some announcements. Let me go back to me real quick. Some announcements. The Fast Tracks 2023 is obviously out. It's available now. It starts going out. Supposedly, we were sending these out on the 21st of this month. But again, we're going to try to get some out by Friday if we can. There's a lot of people pre-ordered for that, so we'll get that out. We also want to let you know that in about 2 to 3 weeks, the Fast Tracks 2023 budget course will be out. And so that'll be out as well in case if you're budget strapped. But again, it's still going to be quite powerful because I've got some exciting news for what we're going to even add to the budget program tonight. And I'll explain what's going on for that. All right, so let's go on and do a little bit of answer some of these code questions or what we had going on. I've got kind of written down. And let me go on and get into the lesson here. Let's get you over to the website. And let me see if I can't really quickly see what's going on with this chat, folks. Hold on, and maybe I can reinvigorate this thing. Probably not. But anyway, I can see your chats. If you post a question or something, don't worry, I can see it. And you probably can see it on your platform as well, but I can see it. All right, let's see here. So one of the questions that somebody said is, Paul, show us, let me go to the lesson actually better. Show me in the code the references for how to size a branch circuit for the motor. Which code sections do we use for that? Okay. All right, so first thing we'll do this is obviously we're in 430s for motors. And a couple of the things to start, kind of committing to memory is 430.22. That's your first one. All right, so we'll go to 430.22. If you got your code books, if you happen to, I bought your code books tonight. Let's see here. So let's go to 430.22. If you have a link, you can get there pretty darn quickly. I've got a link. I like to say that, but I'm not getting there very quickly, am I? All right, so here we go. So 430 right here, 430.22, single motors. So if you're going to be running from your panel out to a single motor, then what you've got here, and it could be you have a panel with a breaker and then it goes to maybe an overload, or you're going from the panel with a feeder to a panel with a breaker. And then from there would be your branch circuit on the load side of that final overcurrent protected device. Either way, if we're sizing for a single motor, you want to be in 430.22. And it just says conductors that supply a single motor used in a continuous duty application. And you're going to assume that it's continuous duty unless they state otherwise on an electrical exam or something that way. But typically it's going to be continuous duty is what you're going to run into most of your calculations when it comes to motors. Says shall have an ampacity of not less than 125% of the FLC or the full load current rating as determined in 430.6A1, which tells you what tables you can use to get the FLC, or not less than specified in 430.22A through G. And there's different conditions here for different types of motors, like multi-speed motors, direct current motors, Y-start delta run motors, part-time winding motors, and of course you have other than continuous duty, which is, if you get an exam question on that, they're probably talking about something like short duty, intermittent duty, periodic duty, and varying duty. And they're all down here in this table, and they're all basically a percentage, right? So one of the things to remember with these down here, when you see these down here, this, when you're using E for like elevators or whatnot, this actually does use the nameplate, whereas everywhere else uses the FLC in 430, 247, 248, 249, or 250, and what's not like that. Okay, so so there you got that value. So so anyway, that's for other than continuous duty. Most of the time on the exam, we're talking continuous duty, but I want to answer the questions as they were presented tonight. So, sizing a motor, single motor, then it's going to be 430.22. Make sure you note that down. So some of these things when you're dealing with motors, just commit to memory. So if you're sizing the conductors to a single motor, 430.22. Now, what if I'm running to multiple motors? Well, if you remember 430.22 for single, then it's easy to remember 430.24 when you're running feeder to multiple motors, right? So that was his next question. So we'll just scroll on down and we'll get into 24 right here, okay? So 430.24, several motors or a motor and other loads. Yeah, so you could have a circuit running out and you could be supplying, going into a trough, and it could be coming out and it could be supplying multiple motors, but it also could be supplying other loads as well, things like that, okay? So remember, and I will remind you, Fast Track students, if you did not submit your questions within 24 hours of it from the program, probably not going to get answered tonight. That's the rules. All right, so 430.24 says conductors supplying servo motors or a motor and other loads shall have an ampacity not less than the sum of each of the following. So when we did a single motor, it was 125% of the FLC. And we'll look at where we get the FLC values in a minute. Okay. But for multiple motors, then it's 125% for the highest rated motor. And then it's going to be the sum, which is the FLC of all the other motors. So you hear me talk about FLC. Remember that the nameplate is not the FLC. Now, a lot of times we'll call it FLA because we just want to differentiate between the FLC, which we got to use the tables in the back of 430, right? And we want to use the FLA or the nameplate for things like other than continuous load, continuous duty motors, like we saw in 430.22e. For sizing overloads for motors, then we're going to use the nameplate for that. But any other time, we're typically going to use the tables in the back of 430 for the FLC. So when you see that rating. So let's kind of continue this on and look at it real quick. So let's say I'm running a circuits out and I'm hitting a wireway, and I'm going to come out of that wireway and I'm going to do multiple motors. Okay, so you have to determine which is the highest rated motor. And if any of this is confusing for you, we do have a video for motors over on Fast Track's Tube. It's not available on YouTube and it's not free. It's only available to our annual subscribers. So if you're interested in seeing a video where I go into this, then make sure you check that out. But of course, upcoming Fast Tracks Lives, I probably will be doing small parts of my motor training, just small parts of it. Because we only have an hour. So I might be doing sizing and show you some graphics for a single motor and multiple motors. And then I might show you overload sizing, and I might show. So again, we do have things that'll come up. This is only like, I believe, our third episode here. So we're trying to kind of get into things. Okay, so if I have multiple motors, let's say I had three motors, that'd be multiple. So the largest one or the highest rated one would be at 125% of the FLC, which is back, in this case, if it was a three-phase motor, be 430.250. And then it's the sum of the other motors. But notice how it says other motors in the group. So what the in the group means, it tends to throw people off when they see that. They're like, "What? I don't understand what that means, what it says in the group." Okay, so if I have three motors and it's a three-phase and all of them are three-phase motors, 208 three-phase, then I have an ABC, ABC, ABC. Well, since each motor is intimate with the other motor because they share one of the phases, then that's considered in the same group. You with me? So that would be 125% for the largest of the FLC, and then the sum, whatever the FLC of the other ones, and you add them. So it's 125 for the first one, and then 100% of the FLC of the other two, right? And if it's just a three-phase 208 ABC and ABC for each one of them, then and equipment grounds, chances are, obviously, they're all going to be in the same group. So that's why you'd add them all. Now, what gets confusing for people on this one is, what if I have motors that's a three-phase, but instead of you have ABC on one, and then maybe the other one is not going to take, but maybe they do run a neutral. And so now you've got ABC on one, and then the other motor maybe is utilizing one of the legs in the neutral, and then maybe the other motor is using one of the other legs in a neutral. Maybe it's a unique setup like that where they're getting single phase derived from three phase. Well, you're only going to, when it says the largest motor, you're only going to look for the other motors that share one of the phases with the largest motor. And that would be in the same group. If you have excuse me, one of the other motors that's not, then it wouldn't be in the same group. Okay, so just think of it this way. Once you find the largest motor, if any of those phases are also supplying other motors, then they're in the same group. Does that make sense? Obviously, when we do motor graphics, I'll have a great graphic for that. But I'm just trying to answer a gentleman's question tonight because this gentleman did follow the rules and sent the questions in advance. Okay. So I figured I'd answer it for him. All right, so that's basically how you do it for the motors. Now, where do we find the FLC for all these motors? Well, y'all all know that you find the FLC by going back here, and it's going to be either 430.247 or 430.248 or 430.249 or for three-phase 430.250. And I'll just show this one on the screen. So this is where you get the FLC. So anytime you get a question, excuse me, I got a cough. I've had a cold and I can't get rid of it. In this one, if you need to find the FLC, then you always know to go back to the tables in 430.250. If it's for overloads or it's for other than continuous duty motors, it'll tell you to use the nameplate, and that's what you use off the nameplate of the motor. Any other time for short circuit ground fault protection, for conductor sizing and all that, you're going to use the FLC. And this is where you find it right here. Now, I had a question the other day. Remember, this table is broken into two sets. Okay, this threw a guy the other day, so I want to just cover this. This left side is talking about induction type squirrel cage and wound rotor motors. Okay, so that's covering the majority of probably what you might see on an exam. But every now and then you might get a question about a synchronous type motor. And you have to remember that this column over here is kind of like drawing a little line down the page right here to separate the two. And if you can write in your code books, you're in a state that lets you do that, then you could put a line right down there. And that way you know that if it's a synchronous motor, then you're going to be over in this column. And you see the amps really start right about right here, which is right about at 25 horsepower motors, okay? So you don't see any synchronous motors less than that, right? So the one thing to be aware of, usually in a question in an exam, if they ask you about a synchronous type motor, that it's typically at unity. That's why it says unity power, okay, 1.0. But in the question, they might give you a percentage, okay? And if they give you a percentage, that's what this little asterisk is for. Don't forget to go down here to the bottom. And remember, if they give you a 90 or 80% power factor in the question, then you have to use these multipliers. So you take the FLC, which is over here for the synchronous motor, these over here on the right. Again, this is only for synchronous motors. You take this value over here and you're going to multiply that by 1.1 if it's 90% or 1.25 if it's 80%. So don't let that throw you on an exam. Make sure you identify synchronous, and that's what would kick in this asterisk. Otherwise, you're just going to pull the FLC from this side over here for most all motors that you deal with. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I covered that because that was a question that somebody sent in last week. And I could tell they were working it over here and their question was about a synchronous motor. So that kind of screwed them up. All right. So the next question, somebody says, well, what do I use to size the short circuit ground fault protection for a branch circuit that's running out to a single motor? Okay. Well, in that one, you're going to be looking at, and again, if you're writing all these down, and I will get to your questions, post them. I'll do my best to get to them as I kind of cover this question. It was submitted. That's the kind of the purpose is to answer questions for people. So remember, you got questions, send them in. I'll answer them on Wednesday nights for you. But you know, we want to be able to make sure if I need to do a slide or something that I have time to do the slide, not the electric slide. All right. I don't want to break a hip or something. All right, so let's go down here. Okay, so 430.52 is where we want to be for the short circuit ground fault protection for motor. So let me go down here And this thing does not really conducive to me finding stuff here, so bear with me. There we go. All right, so here we're at 430.52. Okay, you can see it on the screen right here. So this is a rating of settings for an individual motor circuit. Kind of goes hand in hand with 430.22, which we size that individual circuit to a motor. Okay. Now don't worry, when we do multiple motors, it's going to end up sending you back here anyway. So don't worry about that, but I just kind of let you see it. Pablo, thanks for subscribing. Appreciate it. All right. So, general, it says A, it says the motor branch circuit, short circuit, and ground fault protection. And remember, overcurrent protection is short circuit, ground fault, and overload. Well, overload is being taken care of by separate overloads or some type of thermal protection that's built into the motor. So all we're worried about is short circuit and ground fault protection when we're sizing this overcurrent device. All right, so short circuit ground fault protection device shall comply with 430.52B and either 430.52C or D as applicable. All right, so B is all motors, which is what typically you're going to run into on an electrical exam. And so keeping that in mind, you know, all motors. And then it's going to send you down and say, okay, so this is telling you that the motor short circuit ground fault protection device shall be capable of carrying the starting current of the motor. Okay, so it has that. It's pretty generic for all motors. It has to be able to handle that inrush, the starting up of the motor. Right. Now, NACE says C or D as applicable. Well, C is the rating and settings. Okay, and it's what we tend to use the most. And then, of course, you've got down here, if I can get down to it, and of course, you have D for torque motors. Okay. And the questions today just wanted to give us the different code articles that you need to be at, or code sections. But we are going to be doing motors on some Fast Trax Lives in the future. Okay, so hopefully you join us for that. And if any Fast Trax students, you should already have in your Fast Trax program, you should already have our motors video as well that you can watch. All right, so anyway, so here is the table for short circuit ground fault protection. And you can see, I think you can see most all of it. And so here, this is called the maximum rating, right? So this is the maximum rating for this short circuit ground fault protection, maximum. Although we'll go look at something in a second that kind of contradicts that. But just the basic rules here is you have non-time delay fuse, dual element time delay fuse, instantaneous trip, and of course, inverse time, which is typically what we're going to see with most just standards type of circuit breakers, molded case circuit breakers. Typically on exams, we see it's either non-time delay or it's inverse time is typically what you're going to run into. Be prepared for any of them, and it's just a percentage down here of the FLC, by the way. But just kind of keep in mind for all that type of thing. So typically, you're looking at, most cases, 250% for single-phase motors, polyphase motors, other than wound rotor. And then you got squirrel cage, then you got design B, then you got the synchronous we talked about, then you have wound rotor, and you have DC constant. Each has their own percentage that you're going to multiply, all right? Now, one of the things that we talk about here is underneath it, and this is, again, I'm looking at the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code. Okay, for those that wondered all this kind of grayed out areas and whatnot, we are transitioned into the 2023, but it's going to be pretty applicable to whatever edition you're on. It just might be in a different location. Right here, notice you said, well, if you use 250% of the FLC, it's not going to land right on an overcurrent device that's listed in 240.6a. It's not going to fall right on one. I wouldn't imagine it would. But you do have the ability down here, okay? And see where it says right here, unless otherwise permitted in 430.52C1A or B? Well, here's A. It says, where the values determined in table 430.52C1 do not correspond, to the standard ampere rating and settings provided by 240.6, which we talked about. That's where the overcurrent devices are. It allows for the next higher standard rating or setting shall be permitted. So if it doesn't correspond, let's say it was, I just throw a number out there. Let's just say it was 105 amps, and you were going to take the FLC and you're doing the short circuit ground fault protection, and it was an inverse time breaker, then you would be 105 times 2.50. That was 2.50. That'd be 262.5 amps. Well, I am pretty sure that there isn't a breaker listed for that, so you would be able to go up to the next available size. That's what that means. Okay, and so that's there for the notes. And then, of course, you have B that says where the rating specified in 430.52C1 or the rating modified by 430.52CA, which is what we just did, being able to do the next size up. It says, if it's not sufficient to carry the current, remember what it said in B? It has to carry the current. If it's not sufficient to carry the current of the motor, any of the following shall apply, and you have some other options down here as well. Okay? And again, it's just following these options. It's not brain surgery. You just read it slowly, follow those options. And remember, you're applying this percentage to the full load current, or the FLC, that we got from where? Back in 430.250, right? Makes sense? Okay. Wanted just to make sure. So for the gentleman that wanted that one, that's what you would do for a individual motor. Now, his other question was, what if I've got multiple motors? How am I sizing that? And so the next thing you would go to here is pretty simple. Is you're going to go to 430.62. So if you can remember 52, you can remember 62. Pretty straightforward, right? So here is 62. So this is when you have the motor load, right? Ratings, and you have a feeder supplying specific fixed motor loads and consisting of conductor size in accordance with 430.24. Remember, 430.24 is where we're sizing those conductors for multiple motors. Okay, so that's why it's saying if you size those conductors in accordance with 430.24, if you did that, then it says it shall be provided to protect devices having a rating not greater. Now that's important. Not greater than the largest rating or setting of the branch circuit, short circuit, and ground fault protection of any motor supplied by the feeder based on the maximum permitted value for that specific type of protected device in accordance with 430.52. So you're still going to use, what's up, Odin? Hey, I saw you come in the room. Vincent, I see you. David, I didn't check it out. Hello, good evening. Thanks for dropping in. So what this is saying, folks, that important thing is when you see not greater than, what does that mean? That means, unlike what we did for the branch circuit, short circuit for a single motor, in this case, you can't do the next size up. Okay, so it's not greater than, so you'd have to size down, right? So in that same example that we had before, instead of being able to round up, you'd have to go down to the next standard size, okay? All right. So that's what it means when it says not greater than. So if you're doing feeders and you're sizing short circuit ground fault protection, you're going to use the same table in 430.52 that you did for branch circuit, short circuit, and ground fault protection. Same table. No sense in reinventing the wheel. The only difference here now is that you're not going to round up. You would if it doesn't fall right on a breaker, you're going to round down. Okay, next size down. Make sense? All right. So hopefully that answered that question. So for feeders and the protection of the short circuit ground fault protection of feeders, 430.62, which is going to send you to 430.52. And remember, you don't round up. You have to round down unless it falls right on a breaker. Again, remember, sizing conductors for a single motor, 430.22. Multiple motors, 430.24. Short circuit ground fault protection for an individual motor, 430.52. Multiple motors, and you have feeder short circuit and ground fault protection, 430.62. Going to use the same values in 430.52. You're just not going to round up. You're going to round down. Makes sense? Am I getting you confused? We have a video for this. I'm telling you. That type of thing. All right. So the next thing that he asked was, Paul, what do we use for sizing overload protection for motors? Okay, so for overload protection, you want to go to 430.32. And I'll remind you that motors can get even deeper than this. We're just covering the basics for an exam. But you know what? You could spend a lot of time in motors dissecting the little pieces and things like that in motors. So we're just covering some of the basics for motors, just to kind of answer his questions on where the different articles are. Sections are. All right, we're in Article 430. All right, so now let's go back to 32, or go to 32. All right, so the overload protection for a continuous duty motor, if it's more than 1 horsepower, okay, you've got a, typically on an exam, if you'll have separate overload device, so you'll have the short circuit ground fault protection separate, and then it'll be supplying an overload for the motor, right? So it's a separate overload. It says a separate overload device that is responsive to the motor current. This device shall be selected to trip and shall be rated at no more than the following percentage, no more now than the following percentage of the nameplate rating. So overloads uses nameplate amps, right? Everything else typically uses the FLC amps, okay? But the nameplate's used for the overload protection. And this is the table that you use. All right, this is the little one you use here. So they've got to give you some things, folks. So if they give you a motor with a marked service factor that is 1.15 or greater, then you're going to be using the nameplate amps from the nameplate times 125%. If the motor has a marked temperature rise of 40 degrees C or less, then you're going to be using 125%. Does not have to have both, okay? Any one of these, and it would require that. All other motors that fall outside of these parameters, then you use 115%, okay? So if it is 115 or greater, so let's say it's 1.14, and the temperature rise is 45. Okay, so it's not 40 or less, and it's not 1.15 or greater, then what do you use? 115%. Okay, so keep that in mind. A lot of people get confused with the overloads because they think both of those have to come into play to get the 125, and that's not true. Either one of them hit it, you go for it. Okay. Now, what if that is not sufficient to keep the motor from shutting off, overload, just clipping off? Then you are permitted, if that is not sufficient, it says modifications of these values shall be permitted as provided in 430.32C, okay? So that allows me to go down here to C, and that is another table. Now, this one right here says where the sensing element or settings or sizing of the overload device selected in accordance with 430.32A1, which we did earlier, and say that didn't hold for some reason. This is giving me the permission to say, okay, if that's not sufficient to start the motor or to carry the load, a higher size sensing element or increased settings or sizing shall be permitted to be used, provided the trip currents of the overload device does not exceed the following percentages of motor nameplate load current ratings. So the first one didn't hold. 430.32A, it didn't hold. So because of that, you're allowed. Now, don't get confused on an exam and think you can go all the way to this one. Okay, you have to go to the first one unless they tell you it wasn't substantial enough to hold it, and then to go to C. And then in C, it's the same essential type of table. The only difference here is that the number is increased from 125 to 140% if it's a 1.15 service factor or greater, 140% if it's a 40 C or less temperature rise. And then, of course, if it's in neither of those, then it is 130%, and that covers all other motors, okay? So just remember, again, I'll reiterate this, You don't have to meet the service factor and the temperature rise in order to get the 140. If either one of them fall into play, then you use the 140 for that overload. Make sense? Okay. So that's 430.32A1. And then again, if that doesn't hold, you got C to work on. Read your questions very carefully on your exam, if you got an exam. Now remember, if you're in the field and you're not taking an exam, there's other variables in here. And we're obviously can't go through all these variables in the time frame that we have for our Wednesday night session. But there are a lot of other things in here. Get yourself familiar, okay? You can have protection that's integral to the motor. You can have thermal protection or electrically protected designed into the motor already, which means you wouldn't need the separate overload. There's many options here to be aware of, and they're all right here for you. So good news is sometimes this stuff's taken care of already from a manufacturer if they provide you a motor with thermal protection and all that stuff, and it'll be noted that it's thermal protection, that type of thing. All right, let me see if I can get back real quick and get some of these questions that I had. I can't scroll back your screen, but I can scroll back and see what we got. Okay. Vincent says, Paul, on standard load calculations, how do you account for the range receptacle that is installed, but customer has gas appliance installed currently? Okay, well, how would I account for that? So here's the interesting thing. Cooking is not a requirement, believe it or not. Cooking appliances are not a requirement in a calculation. Same as a dryer is not required. However, if somebody puts in a electric range plug, a 50 amp or whatnot, how I would account for that is I consider that permanent provisions for it, or it's installed. I'm just giving you my opinion on it. If it's there, that means somebody could plug into it. So typically I would use at default, if you don't know what's going in, I would probably use the 220.55 1 unit default of 8 kW. It's probably what I would do. Now, others might say differently. If it's not there, I don't account for it. Yeah, but if you're sizing a load and you know it's there, if they didn't run any at all, I wouldn't account for it. But if they ran the circuit and they put the receptacle in, then somebody is going to come in and they're going to plug one in. Now, one of the things to remember, as with anything, we have the 8,000 watts is what we get from 220.55 in column C for one, as long as it's not over 12 kW. In most standard ranges like that, probably going to be fine. But if it's 50 amperes, for example, so you've got 50, you're looking at potentially a 50 amp something, and we're looking at 12, let's see here, there'd be 12,000 watts, right? Just roughly throwing that, divided by 240 is, 50 amps. So as long as it doesn't exceed 12, and a 50 ampere at 240 would be 12,000, that still would be under column C, which if we did a load calculation would allow it to be 8 kW. So that's why I would take 8 kW. If they put in that range and it's a 50 amp, then I would go on and just use 8 kW for that, because that's what our demand allows for us in 220.55. Makes sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Answer that question. Let's see here. What else? Let's see what we got. That's the only question I had submitted, so I'm glad I can answer. Hopefully, Vincent was still around to hear the answer. Okay. All right. Now let's kind of show you about what people have been wanting to know about for the new questions that we have. Okay. So let me come back. Let me come to chatting real quick. Okay. So if you don't worry, Vincent, I got you covered. No worry. Hopefully it did. Just at least let me know you understood what I said and the logic behind it. Okay. So for everybody that's in the 2020 edition of our Fast Trax program, this is for you students. You are going to get an additional, probably about close to 1,000 more questions. Now I'm going to sneeze here, so hold on for a second. Okay, then y'all didn't need to hear all that. So y'all are getting a huge bonus, plus a bunch of other goodies. and you don't have to pay anymore. Are you excited? You want to see what I'm talking about? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to take you to the Fast Trax program. All right, here's our Fast Trax program for all you students that are in our Fast Trax. You log into your system. If you're new to the course, you always want to go up here and watch this, watch the videos first to kind of in here how to use the Fast Trax. You want to watch that first. But as you all know, I'm always trying to get more and more and more and more stuff. So now, what you're going to notice in your 2020, now if you're in the 2017, I'm so sorry. We don't have the additional database for that. So again, sorry, but you got, nearly 1,300 questions anyway, right? So, but for the 2020, we were able to get you the database. So check this out down here. So now what you come down and down here where you see where it normally is, you see where it says watch our root video, and hopefully you do watch my root video. But now you see something that says electrical exam preparation bonus material. If you open that up, you're going to see two links in here. One is the instruction video. Please watch that first. Don't give me any grief and headaches on how to figure out this thing. Dude, I got so much going on here that with the new budget program coming out and this coming out and the other stuff we got going on, I try to make it easy as possible for you. So you watch this video right here. It'll show you how to do this. But I'm going to show you right now, so kind of doesn't really matter, does it? All right, ready? So watch this. So this link down here is your resource. Click it. Once you got it, you'll have some instructions right here. You probably can't see it on the screen, but there'll be instructions right here. And in those instructions is a 6-digit code. Okay, what you want to do is you want to left click, you want to drag over it, you want to right click, and you want to copy that code. Okay, then you click right here, and right here where it says enter quick links code, enter it right here and hit submit. Boom. Check this out, folks. You've got a bunch of quizzes specific to things like branch circuits, transformers, motors, voltage drops, print reading, all kinds of stuff here. All available to you. Okay? Huge. And I'll kind of give you examples. So transformers. So you'll get questions, you can get the glossary, the ratio to transformer is your ratio of the, okay, and you've got all these. Now, here's a neat thing. You've got your reference right here. So if you need the reference, it'll tell you, read it to you out of the material. But these are just extra. And you click it, it'll get it right, it'll say it's correct, and you move on. So these are just cool extra things to do. All right, now let's go back real quick. Now, check this out. Illustrated gallery. Okay, you have a bunch of other, okay, if I click capacitance, check it out. It's going to show you some graphics of different things in case you've ever wondered what something was, like a bus bar, There's a bus bar there. It kind of gives you some illustrations. How freaking cool is that? All right, so, we're adding them all in here. You're not paying another dime for these things, folks. Flashcards, you got it. We even given you more flashcards than what's in our Fast Trax program. There are tons of them on DC, AC, circuits, transformers, motors. Check out these flashcards will pop up. Branch circuit conductors. And at the bottom, it'll say the circuit conductors between the final overcurrent device and the circuit to the outlet. Again, that is also the definition of a branch circuit anyway. Even though it's under motors, it's still the definition of a branch circuit. But anyway, there's 12 of those in there. And you can just kind of go through them. You can do it by definition, and you can try to answer it. Circuit conductors between the final overcurrent device and the circuit and outlets. Obviously, this is branch circuit again. There you go, branch circuit conductor. Anyway, tons of those. Hone those skills. Make you better. I want supertricians, okay? When I created the Fast Trax program years ago now, and it again is a trademarked program. The way we do it, the process, is nobody has anything like that. And so we have taken a course and we tailor it. We're able to edit it and massage it and support it and be here to answer for you. You don't just buy a book and you're struggling. We're here to help, but we ain't done yet. Check this out. Voltage drop calculator. Is that not freaking wicked? All right, so you pick what you want. We're going to use copper. We're going to say it's 30 amps of current. The distance is 100 feet. And we're going to choose a 12 gauge. And over on the right, you can see what the actual voltage drop is. It shows you the formula, it even shows you the percentage. That type of thing. Is that freaking cool? So you can play around with it, get used to different voltage drop things, change the scenarios all you want. That's pretty cool stuff. All right. And you can change it all in here. Let's see here. Let's see. What else do we want to do? Let's see. That just a basic, but it also reminds you of the formula. Although remember, this is not three-phase. Okay, it's single phase. So that's why we're using the 2 instead of 1.732, but y'all know that. All right, let's go back real quick. All right, now here you go. So you got media library. Okay, you ready? Adding this in now. Media library. Box fill. More videos on it. Oh, hold on. I want you to be able to hear it real quick. So let me turn this on.
And fittings contained within an electrical box. The size of the box to be installed is determined by the box fill. When calculating box fill, it is important to identify common items that do not.
So isn't that cool? All right, so anyway, you've got a bunch of videos in there. And then here's the big deal. Right here. Sample exam questions. Check this out. You got 3 license exams and you got 18 additional exams to tickle your fancy, test your skills. All right, here's this one right here. And here you can see you can start a timer. So you click that timer, it'll get started, clicking down. And legally required standby system shall have standby power ready within blank seconds after normal power failure. Well, you have emergency standby, legally required, and you have optional. Emergency is 10 seconds, right? Legally required is 60 seconds, and optional is whenever grandma cease to exist. So there you go. So 60 seconds. There you go. 701.12. Reckon I shouldn't have said grandma. I should have said mother-in-law. How about that? Am I supposed to have something for that? Hold on. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, there you go with that. So there's tons of those. You can scroll on through them. And here's the thing. There's 25 of these. So if you were to look at this, it's 25-1. There's 18 of them. I'm going to do Paul math. 25 times 18. That is 450 additional questions for you students. Not to mention you have the licensing exams. These are each 100. So it's another 300 for each of those. That is 750 bonus questions for you folks, and you can time them, and you've got a calculator you can pull up on the screen, all this kind of thing here. Wall space between 2 closet doors shall have a receptacle if the space is blank feet or greater. Y'all know that, 2 feet or greater, but it's not going to let you see the answer until you get to the end, right? Now, you could have done it, you could have clicked reference first, but I like to test myself. I don't want to go into the end, so I don't want to look the answer. I'm just going to be answering them. So that's why you use those 3 for rapid boom, 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 and wait until you see what you get at the end type of questions, that type of thing, okay? All right. So anyway, the last thing you've got here is some internet resources, some great links to other resources online, UL, OSHA, all those type of things, NFPA, ANSI, all that kind of stuff, all available, okay? So anyway, just wanted to introduce you to that. It's available. It's live now for you 2020 students, and it's also going to be available in the 2023 edition as well. So you want to make sure that you check that out. And again, all you got to do is go down to the bottom down here, click on that, click on this bonus, watch the video. But of course, you just saw me do it, so kind of pointless. And then go on and log in and enjoy yourself on those practice questions and things like that, okay? Now, this is bonus, so it could come and go. It may not stay. We might get rid of it. Remember, it's bonus, and what is bonus? It's like getting a bonus at work. It's not guaranteed, but it's nice when you get it, right? So I recommend you use them now and enjoy it. It's a great added benefit for you. All right. Has anybody got any questions on anything that I've talked about tonight? You have some question you want to ask before I cut y'all loose? I thought it was a great show. Next week, we will have a lesson. So, I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to join me. But we are going to have a lesson. And I might spill the beans and say that it is going to be in chapter 6, but I'll leave it at that. But there is going to be a short lesson. Remember, if you want me to answer questions for you, this is no different than the paulabernathy.com portal. If you put your question on the paulabernathy.com portal, then guess what? It probably will be answered on a Wednesday night session. And it also could be answered in a podcast as well. So that's the best way to send questions to me, folks, is to go to the paulabernathy.com portal. And if you've never done it yet, I'm going to bring it up on the screen because it is also available in our mobile app as well. Pretty quick. Now, I must have typed it wrong here. Hold on there. I can't see my screen. Bear with me here. Let me make sure I type this thing right this time. So it's a portal that allows you to, let's see if I can get to it. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Free portal. All you got to do is put your name in, last name, email address, and type your question. Okay, put it in here, boom, 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 type your question all the way, and just boom. Submit the question to me, and I will answer your question. If you're in Fast Trax, then all you got to do is put up here, copy and paste your question from the program, or if you're asking me a question about the course, don't make me go hunting it down. If you have one of the questions you don't understand or you think is wrong or wonky, copy and paste it in here and just click submit. This is the way that we're moving forward for me to answer any questions from anybody. Why? Because it has disclaimers on it and it is a neat and efficient, no emails necessary. You can also get to this from your mobile app. I don't know whether you saw this. For those that have not downloaded our mobile app yet, I don't know why you haven't. It's free. And you're going to notice that we're going to put, well, I don't want to spill the beans, but you're going to have a new feature coming on the mobile app soon that I think you're going to like. Okay. But anyway, let me show you what the mobile app here. So you click on it. Once you download it, you just go to our website. You'll see where it is. Once you're at the mobile app, right there, you can go down here to what's called resources. And I will click on resources. And at the very top button of the resources screen, it's a Ask Paul button. And there it takes you right to the same thing, right on your phone, in the field, anywhere. Isn't that awesome or what? So also plug out to Schwartzy, who's putting a lot of work in over on the Sparky Hub as well as Fast Trax Chat. Did you know that you can actually install Fast Trax Chat as a PWA app on your phone as well? I've got it right here. I'll click on it. There it goes. Loads. There you go. That's the chat feature. Chat, excuse me, chat away, chat away. You can even hit a button and Schwartzy will come running. Okay, cool, right? Where do you get our mobile app? Just go to our website. I'll show you that again right here. Here you see up here, it says mobile app right here. Just click on it. And if you're on a desktop, scan the barcode with your phone. Or if you're on your phone, navigate to it and just click right here on this link right here. And it'll ask you if you want to put a shortcut on your home screen. Say, yes, I do. We're not loading anything into your phone. All we're doing is putting a quick link to get to our PWA, which is web hosted. But it looks like an app on your phone. We decided to do that because that allows us to push things to your phone, basically push notices and do everything without having to load any heavy software on your phone. That's a beautiful thing. Okay. Also, for those that have been asking about budget courses, you click budget and free courses right here. You'll see our courses, right? Here's the 2023. It's not available yet, but it will be. And it will not be this price, I can promise you. So if you go try to order it now, it's not going to work for you. You won't be able to check out. I'm just saying. But it's going to be up there soon. But the one that is up there is the 2020 edition, and that is $199 right now, so it's very budget friendly. But there's some free courses over here as well. Exam primer and box and enclosures and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, bunch of stuff that we're trying to do what we can to give you as much as we can. Okay. All right. All right, folks, that's pretty much wrapped up what I wanted to cover tonight's show. And next week we will have a lesson, so make sure you mark it on your calendar so that you know to join me. And it will be something, I believe we've got it set up to be something, a little lesson out of chapter 6, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then after that, next week, I think we're going to be doing load calculations for a single family dwelling and how it's changed for 2023. So we'll be doing an overview of that. But remember, if you have any questions in your Fast Trax program, what do you got to do? Send it to me using paulabernathy.com. Also, folks, I don't support Wix anymore. So anybody that's over on the old website that's using the Wix apps and all that, I don't support it anymore. So probably won't answer it. We only support our new app, which is free, or you can also come over here and use the Contact Us button on our website, and you can send something through our website. But if it's a code question, I need it to go through paulabernathy.com. That's our technical portal, okay? All right, that's it, folks. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Ain't a whole lot you can do in an hour, but I think we covered a lot of stuff, gave you some significant sections in 430 for motors. What else do I have to tell you? That's it. I'm all out. Okay. All right. Folks, appreciate you. Till next time, stay safe. God bless.